Good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday. I'm the Grace Strega, and I'm here to give you your daily collective read for today, Thursday, July 18th, 2024. What do we have coming through in the cards for today? May I please have the first 5 cards in our 5-card spread? First card we are starting our day off with today is, I love to see it. I love to see it. We've got here our 5 of Pentacles in its reversal. A lot of the work that we see, and this is why I keep saying right now is not a time to move into the realm of assumption. We see even now, because a lot of that realm of assumption, that is that movement into moving towards the abandonment wound, right? So that ability of having to navigate through that, having to navigate through the abandonment wound, potentially even situations or circumstances that intentionally or intuitively just feel like they are triggering to you. Well, that is the difference between experiencing something that is triggering versus allowing oneself to be triggered. So we see even now that for a lot of the energy across all of the frequencies, having to navigate through that work, it can feel very energetically difficult. There's parts of the self. It's like that. I want to describe it. It's like the claws of the crab. Like the crab wants to take those little snaps, right? The crab wants to take those little nips. But what is occurring at the same time? We see here that that's that arrival of the Leo season, which is, again, it's really important right now to think more about what you aspire and desire to be, moving into that frequency of the higher self, as it were, as opposed to what may feel like it is easy, or what may feel like it is protective, or what may feel like it's like instinctual, as it were. Now, masculine and feminine energy, deep within the divine union frequency, this is the energy that's almost reaffirming and allowing that work to occur. But what's interesting about it is, for energy deep within the divine union frequency, one of the easement points that we're effectively seeing that occurs in those modalities, and this is why you have to have a lot of compassion towards the counterpart right now, because there's that modality where you may feel the vulnerability point in the fact that when you're in the divine union frequency, you have that expression, you have that openness, you have that ability of recognizing the vulnerability point, the space or place that you may feel like you're most emotionally authentic. But also, that is also the conversation about sometimes that authenticity point. It almost requires that shouldering of the energetic burden that is occurring around outside of the self, right? So there's a lot of this energy that we almost see as that venting process, having that space or place where you feel like you can finally be your most authentic self, but at the same time, trying to be energetically protective, that how you come across towards the counterpart is not reactive to what you're experiencing outside of the self, but almost reflective of being able to create that energy of being able to create a safe space for the counterpart. And sometimes that can feel like a little bit of that boundary building, if you will. Sometimes that can feel like a little bit of that work in terms of facilitating. That's almost that creative sense of trying to create a safe space for one another. But it almost requires you to kind of check your own ego at the door to a certain extent, because I see even now, I told you, a little bit of that snapping, a little bit of that, depressurizing that may often occur in modalities where you feel vulnerable enough that some of that instinctual aspect comes through. Well, that's why we see even now, a lot of the work deep within the divine union frequency is having to navigate or work through another energetic trigger, or almost uncovering those energetic triggers in one another. But we see even now that for a lot of the energy deep within the divine union frequency, having the safety or security of experiencing a place or space where you feel like that full amplification of being able to be your most authentic self, but almost working in that refinement of trying to be your highest version of self. That's why we see even now that this can feel like a lot of that pressure from the outside, feeling like it is forcing itself, or forcing the sense of it trying to come, it's like the outside trying to intervene on the inside. Now for a lot of the energy right now, navigating that in the divine union frequency, a lot of that may even be coming through in the observation of those around you that you feel are navigating and reacting more from an abandonment wound. Because when we see someone in a reactive space or place, that ability of understanding, that ability of recognizing the pain, the fear, the amplification of the internal anxiety that is potentially reflecting outwards, that's a lot of that compassion that can be helping that work right now, because we almost described it as a lot of the energy in that modality having to navigate or feeling like they have to take that energetic hit from someone who's moving more from that reactivity point, and almost trying to maintain that point of compassion, not allowing oneself to be triggered. It can feel very hard. It can feel very heavy. But what's beautiful about a lot of the energy deep within the divine union frequency right now is you're doing a lot of work to facilitate helping one another by almost showing and having that expression of seeing how hard someone is working not to be in that modality that may feel like it comes very easy to them. It's like not taking, sometimes just seeing someone being like, I can see the fact that there's an easy road here, and you're doing that hard work. Sometimes that's all we need in order to feel the support and continuing to go forward. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, deep coming into divine union, a lot of this work is that feeling, and I need to see it I even see it right now. If this is energy that's moving deeper into divine union, and that modality, this is energy that may in the past have felt triggered, may have moved away from this because of the abandonment wounds, because of the anxiety points, because of the externalized pressure. So if this is energy that is recognizing their own anxieties and their own fears that feel like they're like pulling them away from the counterpart, even at a moment that they feel like that instinctual sense of going forward. That's more of that conversation that I brought up about the difficulty of energy at this time, about not building into, like rejecting the world of assumption and moving more with that sense of intuition and intention. Because if these are energies that are moving closer to one another right now, and even in that modality, all of those doubts and fears feel like they're creeping up. That's a lot of that energy that is putting a lot of focus and direction on what it is that they intend to create with the counterpart. That again, being able to do that is almost that vulnerability that becomes strong, right? Allowing oneself to become more vulnerable at a time that one feels a lot of that reactivity forming, potentially even that urge to run away from a big feeling. But instead being able to sit with it, being able to inhabit it. A lot of the energy coming into divine union right now feels like they're having a lot of breakthroughs, and that breakthrough has to do with a breakthrough within the self that is leading to a deepening of an energetic connection. While for masculine and feminine energy right now that is in separation, this is a lot of hard and heavy work. This is a lot of hard and heavy work, particularly because we see that for a lot of the energy in separation right now, navigating difficult terrain with a potential new counterpart or a new energetic connection here at a time when the energy around you feels like it's so discordant to what it is that you intend to create with another. That's a lot of the energy right now that is navigating their own doubts and fears, that's working through their own abandonment wounds. But that internal process of recognizing, again, what you feel instinctually called to do, what that part that wants to protect you from something big and scary, that thing that comes up sometimes when we have that moment of having to be very gentle and soft, that recognition point that same feeling is coming to the surface, that ability of giving yourself perspective, following your intuition, but almost utilizing that pathwork of the expression or the anxiety of what could be happening to inform you to get a better sense of what is happening. That is why we see that a lot of the energy right now, that's that difficult circumstance that may be surrounding a situation that potentially becomes the tie that binds, because that's that modality of being able to almost see someone in a very authentic expression of how they navigate difficult circumstances. That again, if these are energies that are coming through with a lot of communication towards one another, almost having to reach a deeper level of vulnerability at a time that a connection is first forming, well, that potentially becomes either the tie that binds or the reflection point of seeing someone. And this is why it could also potentially lead to some separation right now, because that ability of almost seeing that sense of someone that's moving more like from the activation point of their abandonment wound instead of moving with the intentionality or the prioritization of trying to maintain some sort of energetic connection. Like, that is the point of clarification that we're recognizing, that is almost allowing a bit of that wait and see approach, but with a certain level or degree of patience and insight. So that's a lot of difficult energy, a lot of difficult work right now for the energy and separation. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now. Second card in our 5-card spread, Ace of Wands. So a lot of the work that we see is occurring right now. I need to stress this because it's happening across all of the frequencies. It's feeling energetically or emotionally triggered, recognizing that such is occurring, but then allowing one's own intentionality to break through that anxiety, to break through that fear, to allow for that sense of intentionality to come to bear in relationality to anything that you're navigating right now. And again, this is very hard work for the energy and separation. This is very hard work for the energy and separation, because this is that moment, I want to say, it almost feels like the energetic equivalent of having to like hold a pose, if you will, like having to kind of stay very firm, to stay very steadfast in relationality to what it is that you aspire and desire with the potential new counterpart. So we see even now that for both masculine and feminine energy, in separation, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. A lot of this feels like that pathwork of observation. It's not the fact that there isn't something that's happening that's energetically triggering, because we see to a certain extent that it's energetically triggering both for the energy that is in the divine union, like both for the energy that is focusing on, again, experiences from the past, feeling that sense of anxiety, feeling those fears creeping up, but almost, again, not allowing the shadow of the past to mar the present experience. A lot of that work is holding the energetic standards. And when we hold energetic standards, we don't allow ourselves to become reactive. We know what is right for us. So a lot of the energy right now in separation, if these are either, again, and I see it, we saw it a lot yesterday, masculine, having to navigate difficult situations, either difficult situations that are happening with the self in a point of personal exhaustion, or difficult situations as it results to having to come forward and assist other masculine energy in this modality. That's that moment that we see even now. A lot of this is being helped by clear, articulate communication. The ability to see and recognize is not so much one about having to do what one must do, but also being able to prioritize how you are expressing what is occurring to those around you. A lot of the work of the masculine in separation, you know, there's that reactivity point, there's that anxiety and fear. But what we really see is happening is it's almost driving that pathwork of purpose right now for a lot of the masculine energy experiencing this, because it's that sense of really focusing on what is important and recognizing that and showing a level and degree of consistency towards feminine, not just when things are easy, but when things are hard. For feminine energy, and this is a lot of heavy energy coming towards the energy and separation right now. This is what I mean. Like this is triggering stuff. For feminine energy, again, seeing a masculine energy, and this is why it's a bit more of a work of patience right now on the part of the feminine. Because if this is feminine that is holding firm in that same modality, that is working through that same anxiety point, feeling that sense of a masculine that is articulating and communicating something, but in a way what they're articulating and communicating is them articulating and communicating something that they can't immediately take action on. This is the feminine energy that's working through their own pathwork of not jumping to conclusions, of not operating in the realm of assumption, and not allowing their worst doubts and fears to override their own intentionality, if you will, that is requiring the feminine to face their own anxieties and fears in the process. But what do we see that's happening for a lot of the energy in separation right now? That holding firm to the manifestation goal, that recognition point that, again, when we have a manifestation goal, we effectively have to surrender the energetic outcome. A lot of that energy is holding firm in relationality to what they want. For masculine, that's almost that requirement. It's almost requiring a lot of excessive communication right now through difficult circumstances or situations. For feminine, it's requiring a sense of steadfastness and taking more of a wait and see approach. So we see that both of these energies in separation right now, It's like that pressure that like makes a diamond, if you will. Right? So a lot of these energies, I'm going to say a lot of these energies going through this in separation, they might move into divine union very quickly after this, because it's almost that moment of someone saying to another, oh, I saw exactly the person that you were in the way that you navigated a situation. I got my full breadth of that simply by seeing where you were when things weren't ideal. Because when we see who we are when things aren't ideal, then we give clarity in terms of who we are when things are. While for masculine and feminine energy right now that is coming into divine union, a lot of that work that we're effectively seeing is happening right now for energy that is coming into the divine union. That is that modality wherein we recognize or identify if these are energies that are putting a lot of work in relationality to what they're building in a connection. It almost feels like you're proceeding further than you have before, because this is energy that's not just moving towards one another because it's easy. And I need to stress this. This is the difference between moving towards what feels like it is easy versus what one feels is real, right? And that work is hard, because for a lot of the energy right now, that sense of like pushing forward, that sense of like navigating and challenging oneself along the way. This is a lot of the energy that may even be moving into modalities that they have been in before, but saying again to one another, I've never felt this way, because this is something energetically different, because this isn't energy that's moving towards one another in the hope that something that is experienced between them will change by moving deeper into an energetic connection. This is energy that feels what they feel towards one another so vitally. It's already presently there, that the ability of continuing forward in that directionality, bringing it into the realm of the tangible, that's almost what feels so anxiety inducing, because that's the fear or anxiety of affecting or changing something that is energetically perfect, while also recognizing that change must inevitably occur because of the value and significance of those connections. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, deep within the divine union frequency, a lot of that work that we see that is coming to bear here has to do in the realms of recognizing and identifying and helping one another through those modalities of not, I want to say this, a lot of the energy right now is going through those modalities that when you're experiencing a lot of external pressure, it becomes far too easy to amplify the reactivity point in the places and spaces that are most vulnerable around you, right? Because that's that moment that, like an outside pressure, it's like if you're trying not to be reactive, it becomes too easy to be reactive to the energy that's basically in alignment with you. So we see even now, like a lot of the energy deep within the divine union frequency is almost working a lot on the internal sense of self, trying to energetically protect the energy that they're creating with the counterpart from the pressure of the outside, from that amplification, because that is almost that moment that you feel like the sense of how easy it could be to allow some of that to slip forward, to allow some of that pressure to be regulated within an energetic construct that allows for that sense of vulnerability to do so, but doing so in a way that feels like it is positive, feels like it is productive, feels like it is something that is functional. That is the energy that, again, it's a little bit of that push and pull, if you will, that almost requires a little bit of that venting, or that process of allowing a sense of letting off steam, but in a way that feels like it is productive and positive for those within the counterpart energies. Third card in our 5-card spread for today. This is like kettle energy. This is like kettle whistle energy. Third card in our 5-card spread for today. On the bright side, I'm very happy to see this card in its upright, because this baby has been in its reversal for days. We've had this card popping up for days in its reversal, but that ability of just having a moment, I told you, sometimes you need some space to energetically vent. You need some space to energetically vent. And that is the beauty and the gift that we see that is occurring right now for a lot of the energy deep within the divine union frequency. Because what we're effectively seeing, as it were, is that for energy that is deep within the divine union frequency, the ability of seeing how vulnerable and how easy it is to vent to the energy that's your counterpart, to the energy that's just there, but also recognizing that they're the last person that should be in the expression of receiving it. Like, that's a lot of that moment that's like deep calming breaths, or almost having to have a lot of miscommunication. And this is, again, we're coming into Mercury retrograde season, so this could be a lot of that moment of saying to someone, I'm sorry, that wasn't directed towards you. Like, what I'm saying is not directed towards you, but you're here and I need to be able to express it. Like, it's like that, literally like that letting off steam energy. But again, what is the energy within the divine union doing? As long as they're not coming into that space of that space of self-reference while you do so, that's the energy going, no, I feel the same exact way. Because what happens when we experience, like, this is the important thing you have to recognize. You're never going to get rid of your triggers. They're not going anywhere. You can't operate in a space or state where you won't have any triggers. The whole experience of being here is going to trigger you. It's going to trigger you. It is how you navigate those triggers. It is how you navigate that journey. And so we see even now a lot of the energy deep within the divine union, even having that moment of venting, but feeling that sense of how careful, how conscientious, how self-referential one is in the process of doing that. Instead of becoming reactive, instead of almost like observing one's like immediate desire to react, but almost being able to articulate it with it, well, that becomes the tie that binds. So we see even now that for a lot of the energy within the divine union frequency, having that moment of being like, like that moment of being like, sorry, I just had to let something out. And the other person being like, I understand, and being like, recognize that wasn't directed towards you, but I just needed to like, and someone being like, no, I get it. Like, that is that ability that immediately becomes a point of catharsis, because it's a sense in the recognition point that you have somewhere to vent towards. While for the energy that is coming into divine union, you're creating the space for one another. You're moving into that modality. You're potentially now, what's happening for a lot of the energy coming into divine union, it's not just the fact that you're experiencing a lot of these difficulties or hurdles that are surrounding you, but it's a sense that you feel like you're sharing in them, right? It's almost that moment that we see here. If these are energies that are sharing, what happens when we share and express our anxieties and fears to one another? We join them. We feel that sense of catharsis. We feel that amplification of sameness. So what we see to a certain extent, if this is energy that isn't operating from their triggers, if this is energy that is a moment of vulnerability, places where they may have potentially run from in the past, instead they're pushing themselves forward and are articulating, like, almost a lot of energy right now with coming into divine union that may be expressing experiences in their past journey where they felt something similar. But they're much more mindful now of their own energetic reactions, right? And even in that modality of effectively articulating what those experiences were, or what they've effectively learned on that path work, that's that moment that, again, this energy feels like it's the tie that binds, because it's almost that energy of someone saying, this has become so valuable to me. This has become so precious, that I'm even articulating to you how precious it becomes, because there's that observation. I told you the energy that's coming into divine union is almost observing that what they're creating between them and the counterpart feels like this third thing. It feels like this third thing that's arrived between them, and it becomes that preciousness of someone saying, I feel it too, right? And so that becomes the tie that binds, because this is the energy that's almost speaking towards the relationship itself as like that beautiful modality of the gestaltness of coming together with a counterpart and saying, it's not that these difficulties, like the energy is not saying, it's not that something is difficult. It's that my priority has been in preserving this no matter what, through those difficulties, through those hurdles, that this is the energetic priority. And even there, that becomes the energetic tie that binds. And this is why even now, if these are energies that are looking towards facilitating changes, they're doing it with a lot of care. Because this is the energy that's not, again, this is why they may be expressing this to one another, saying, you don't understand. It's not that I'm trying to change something because I'm hoping it'll fix something between you and I. This is something that I know we need to do, and I want to preserve what we have at all costs. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, that is in separation, This is a lot. This is a lot for the energy and separation. And I can see even now, like there can be a lot of energetic frustration that's occurring right now because it feels, I need to say, it feels a bit, for a lot of the energy and separation, I need to say it, especially for masculine. It's almost like I see a lot of masculine energy coming towards feminine, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to, saying the timing right now could not be worse. Like, I think that you're great, but the timing right now could not be worse. I can't even stress to you that something happening right now, the timing is off. But what's important and valuable that's occurring right now is in these modalities where the masculine may even be venting, maybe venting to a new energetic connection with feminine about these circumstances. This is almost the feminine that feels to the modality of a bridge that is being built between them and the masculine. Because this is a feminine energy that sees masculine in that modality and says, this is not a masculine who hides. This is not a masculine that tries to put on a false face. This is a masculine that's looking towards someone, and they're looking towards me in a space or state of trying to authentically share their journey. And this is almost the feminine energy that's trying to say to the masculine in that modality, it's okay. It's okay, because what's the feminine energy doing? The feminine energy is observing the masculine in this modality. They're seeing the fact that the masculine is coming towards them from a state or space of authenticity. So that's why we see even now, like there's a lot of the feminine energy that, again, isn't building into that pathwork of assumption, giving someone the energetic better. I want to say this, and this is what's so important about this, giving someone the energetic benefit of the doubt while still maintaining one's own energetic standards. This is almost allowing the feminine energy a heightened degree of patience, because the feminine energy is utilizing that time not only to recognize their own internal abandonment wounds rising to the surface in the experience of seeing a masculine in that modality, but then almost allowing oneself to come into this point of observing instead of reacting. That's building that sense of context. That's building that sense of energetic understanding. Fourth card in our 5-card spread for today is Knight of Cups in its reversal. I gotta say, I want a lot of the masculine energy right now. Take some time. Drink some water. Take that time for yourself, because a lot of the masculine energy right now is feeling profoundly overextended, but specifically in the emotional and confidence spaces. I'm not surprised to see this right now for masculine energy. Bearing in mind, this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. I told you, we're moving through Cancer to Leo season. There's a lot of this internal battle that's happening right now. And for some of the masculine energy, it may feel like it's very externalized, potentially even having to help energy around you navigate difficult situations. I even see a lot of masculine energy right now that is navigating circumstances and situations, helping other masculine energy, but almost in a modality where they're maybe articulating to feminine and saying, I can't go into the details. Because this is the masculine energy. I feel like I see a lot of the masculine energy in separation, going through some energetic conflict points, going through a moment of trying to protect, I keep seeing, trying to protect there's an energy toward next to masculine right now in separation that almost needs some level or degree of that's in a deep moment of vulnerability. So I see that a lot of the masculine energy right now in separation is doing their work in not, I want to say, expressing the journey of another while also assisting someone else on their own journey. That's putting some of the masculine energy in separation in rough territory, because it's almost that state of saying to someone, I want to be more authentic to you about what is energetically happening, but I need you to effectively trust me to a certain extent. I need you to effectively take my word for it that I can't necessarily explain to you all the energetic details. So you can see here that for a lot of the feminine energy that's experiencing something in that modality right now, that could be very triggering. That can feel very hard, because that's almost the feminine energy being like, I don't understand. But that's almost the masculine energy. I see even now there's something about some masculine energy in separation that's trying to protect the ego of other masculine energy that needs that level and degree of support at this time. So we see even now that for a lot of the feminine energy that's moving in that modality, having that point, like I said, this is what's so difficult about some of the energy in separation right now, being able to hold the energetic standard, if you will, and say, I understand, but to a degree. You know, like a lot of that requires what happens in that modality. It's the articulation of the communication. It's the ability of amplifying and seeing a masculine that's able to express that, or even potentially to feminine in separation, being able to express the energetic conflict, as it were, is enough for the feminine to say, I understand, because I can tell that you're coming towards me from a place of authenticity. I can tell that you're coming towards me from a place of authenticity. And for the feminine energy, that's that modality that when the feminine sees the masculine coming towards feminine from a place of emotional authenticity, that's the feminine that starts to feel the safety of an energetic masculine connection. Because this is almost the feminine looking towards masculine and going, this is a real one. This is a real one. This isn't someone putting a false face in front of me. This is someone that's authentically expressing how they feel. And the feminine can navigate that. The feminine can tell the difference. The feminine can feel the emotional expression, because I got to say right now, because of this shift right now between Cancer and Leo season, like a lot of the feminine energy is like hardwired into the emotional space right now. And this is the feminine energy that's navigating their own doubts and fears about something that happened in the past. But this is the feminine almost reflecting and saying, in the past, I couldn't feel that emotionality from that person. Right? So I told you a lot of this path work in terms of recognizing and identifying the difference between building into the pathwork of assumption versus the pathwork of intuition. And I can even see feminine energy saying, no, there's something different here. There's something different. While for masculine and feminine energy that's coming into divine union, this is the energy that's saying to one another, this is different. And it's almost that moment of saying, like, this is energy that's going through it within their own head going, why is this different? And this is why it potentially feels different. Because if these are energetic frequencies that in the past moved into divine union, not feeling like they were in connection, but the hope and saying, well, maybe if we take it up a notch, I'll feel like I'm in connection with you. Maybe if we take it up a notch, I'll feel like I'm in connection with you. Maybe if we take it up a notch, I'll feel like I'm in connection with you. This is your energetic reminder that moving deeper into a commitment does not change the energetic expression. It just takes the volume and it cranks it to 11. So we see even now that a lot of the energy that's coming into divine union, the reason that there's so much anxiety here is because the energy is going, this is different. This is not something I'm trying to change by moving it into a deeper construct of commitment. This is something that I feel is real, that I'm doing to preserve at all energetic costs. So we see even now, like for a lot of that energy, for masculine, this is very emotional right now. Like there's a lot of emotionality here. There's a lot of that, like I want to say that outpouring, and a lot of that I'm going to tell you even now, it feels energetically exhaustive. Like a lot of the masculine energy, feeling that sensitivity, it can be a little frightening. It can feel a little devastating. Like this is a lot of masculine energy being like, is this what love is? Like, it's like, oh no, this is awful. Like it's giving like a little bit of that oh no, like it's like that kind of feeling. Because it's not just something that like boosts, like again, it's not just the kind of love that like pats the ego on the head and gives it a little treat. It's the kind of love that's like, oh, this is important to me. This is very valuable. I need to protect this. Like it's a little bit of that type of energy. So we see even now that it's a lot for the masculine in that modality, because it's almost like the masculine being like, I didn't get it before. I get it now. And for feminine energy, seeing that modality, that's why we see it may feel like it's more stabilizing right now for the feminine, because this is the feminine energy that's feeling that moment or that process moving into divine union of saying like, yeah, I can feel the emotional difference. I can recognize that this is something where, again, if these changes are occurring, like that sense is because someone is working so voraciously to try to energetically protect something. And that's why we see even now, like it's almost that sense of the feminine maintaining and navigating a point of patience as they proceed to do so. For masculine, and even here, like being able to like create, like I almost see like, again, this is almost like a lot of the feminine energy moving into that modality, coming into divine union of almost like, again, what happens when the feminine sees the masculine in that moment of energetic vulnerability? It builds that sense of like inevitability. It builds that sense of alignment. It's like a lot of the feminine energy almost looking towards masculine, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to, and being like, this is the one. While for masculine and feminine energy that is moving deeper into the divine union, like deep within the heart of the divine union frequency, a lot of this is more of the venting of exhaustion. Like a lot of this is feeling more like the venting of exhaustion, because if this is energy that's just doing everything they can, they're like operating on all systems, trying to like push things forward, trying to like drive forward on their own pathwork and goals. We see even now, like the hurdle has to do with feeling like you don't necessarily have any other place to vent in your energetic connection. Like you're dealing with a lot of stuff external to the connection, but the only place you can vent is within. And you know how frustrating that is when you're like in that modality where everything that's causing the problems is outside, but the only place you can vent is inward. Like a lot of that energy is just like blowing off steam, if you will, towards one another, but just trying to be very, very energetically mindful as they do so. And it could result in those spaces or places of someone like almost accidentally or inadvertently stepping on someone's toe and saying like, I'm sorry, that, you know, that's not that this isn't like what you're experiencing right now. It's not directed to you. It's like I'm like taking off the bags. I'm like taking off the baggage that I've been carrying all day. You know, it's like that type of energy. And the other energy being like, I totally get it. Fifth card in our 5-card spread before we start getting clarification on these cards. We have here it is again. It's been showing up in the same position. It's been showing up in the same position for days as well. 10 of Pentacles in its reversal. Guys, I'm sure we're going to keep seeing this card in its reversal until the end of this full moon. I'm telling you right now, these two full moons, dude. These two full moons, these two Capricorn full moons. I'm telling you, on the lighter end, in the best way possible, it can feel like bookends. Right? And what's the problem with bookends? Bookends make it so that it feels like nothing can move. Right? So it's a little bit of that restriction point that's happening right now with the two Capricorn full moons. In its detriment, it can feel like a vice, right? It can feel like a vice that is pushing forward to a certain extent. So we see even now, recognizing, and I'm going to say it again, circumstances don't change people. They reveal people. Navigating difficult territory, being able to hold one's own energetic standard along the way, it doesn't require us to be energetically perfect. It requires us to recognize that ability of not allowing the external to impact or affect one's own intentionality, one's own sense of self. This is why the energy that is effectively in the divine union frequency right now, this is why the energy is navigating with one another so much compassion. This is why they're providing each other so much of that energetic compassion. Because this is a modality where we effectively see that for a lot of the energy deep within the divine union, that ability of saying, hey, I know, I get it. I also need spaces to vent. I'm glad to be here for it, because the important thing that we see is that the energy deep within the divine union recognizes the difference between venting towards someone, having that ability to articulate what is happening from without towards within, as opposed to projecting, as opposed to taking it out on someone. And that's really important, because that difference, to a certain extent, that difference between experiencing venting to someone as opposed to taking it out on someone, that is the energy of compassion that occurs within the divine union, because that's almost the energy that even in the process of venting, they say, I don't want you to feel like I'm taking it out on you. And that's the energy within the divine union saying to one another, you're not directing it at me, but it's okay to have a place that you feel safe to be able to express what you're energetically feeling. While for masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union, a lot of that work that we see that is effectively occurring right now as they come into divine union, this is the energy that's feeling more anxiety as they proceed forward, because even if these are energies that have moved into deepening commitment in the past, they're recognizing and saying, this is different. This is not the same as that. This isn't moving towards someone with the expectation of saying, well, maybe if we deepen the commitment, things will get better. Maybe if we deepen the commitment, all of those problems will be fixed. This is the energy that says, this is energetically perfect. and I'm working, and both energies are working so hard to try to preserve and maintain what they have, that they're almost like bringing in that intentionality of slowness. And there could be a lot of the masculine energy that's going through a little bit of emotional unpacking right now, because this is a very difficult time for masculine energy right now. Bearing in mind, this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. Because again, that sense of the emotional self wrestling with the egoic self, this is almost the masculine energy that's looking towards something and saying towards the counterpart, this is energetically perfect. This is what my priority is. This is of value to me. I'm trying to do everything I can, because the problems that I experience in my life right now, they don't happen from within. They happen from without. Like anything outside of this, I need to work to facilitate, to protect, because that is the masculine energy that's saying to feminine, this is my priority. What we're creating together is my priority. Everything that has a problem with it outside, that is my problem now to deal with. Like, that's almost the energy saying that. And for a feminine energy, recognizing that. For a feminine energy that sees the masculine coming towards them and saying, I am prioritizing this beyond everything else. And the feminine saying, I want that as well. This is the energy that feels like there's something really beautiful and valuable that they're creating between one another. Because this is the energy that, again, they have that bond that's already maintained, and that ability of changing it, having to bring it more into the tangible space. That is the anxiety point, because it's almost a lot of conversations of saying, I don't want these changes to impact what we already have together. While for masculine and feminine energy that is in separation, this is why this is such a difficult time right now for so much of this energy in separation. Because if this is energy that's in separation and they're navigating a circumstance or situation that someone is having an experience and saying, this couldn't be happening at a worse time. Like, this is the energy that's recognizing, and again, a lot of the connections that are happening for energy and separation right now are potentially not built so much on the fact that plans are going as they were intended to, but the authenticity that is being expressed in the process of seeing how someone navigates a difficult hurdle or situation, that is building that context of actually deepening an energetic connection, even at the time of first connecting in the process. For masculine, that ability, and again, even here, trying to be authentic, trying to tell the feminine exactly how you feel, even potentially articulating your own frustration around the circumstances or situations. If this is the feminine energy experiencing that, this is the feminine energy almost like, again, having that intuitive ability to recognize the authenticity of an honest emotion. So even if there is some kind of similarity between what something feminine experienced in the past versus now, this is almost the feminine energy saying, no, there's something different here. There's something different here. And this is masculine going, listen, and this is masculine saying to feminine, it's not always like this. It's not always like this. So again, having these energies not build into the world of assumption, but allowing that intuition to guide them right now is really valuable and important, while also maintaining the energetic standards. Continuing to get clarification between our Five of Pentacles in its reversal in combination with our Ace of Wands in its reversal. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with our Four of Pentacles in its upright. So masculine and this is patience work, man. Energy and separation. There's a lot of patience that needs to come into bear. But what's important? What's important when we come into the aspect of patience? The aspect of patience is the recognition point that when we put aside our own egoic needs and we come into a space of consideration, there's that moment that we can feel that expansion point in recognizing, again, not allowing that abandonment wound to trigger us, but thinking a lot about instead what it is that we truly are motivated towards. So we see even now, like, one of the valuable things, and this is why we're talking about it with energetic standards, this isn't the energy that is articulating and feeling like they're being put off inevitably, right? This is why this work is different right now for masculine and feminine, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. This isn't feminine energy feeling like they're leaving this like open-ended consideration point in relationality to what they're hoping to achieve or reach with a masculine. Because if this is masculine energy that has to like push something aside, but then immediately comes and says, no, but we're going to do it here. Like this is when it's going to happen. This is the feminine that almost, again, sees and recognizes the difference of past masculine energy that may have always had something coming up, always had that next vector, almost always in that position of fickleness. As opposed to a masculine that says, no, I'm prioritizing the connection in the midst of something happening that I can't necessarily control. And I'm articulating to you in the process of it that my ability of articulating to you what the new plan is or what my new process is. That's the feminine saying, I recognize the authenticity here. I recognize the difference between someone like perpetually putting something off versus someone saying, this is it. This is when. Like apologies because something's happening right now, but I'm assuring you that this is that moment. So we see even now there's a lot of new energetic connections that are forming by almost seeing someone going through what may feel like a point of difficulty, but seeing the authenticity of that difficulty and saying, take your time. I recognize that. I value that. I can see that that is what is occurring. While for masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union, a lot of this work is integral in relationality to what it is that you're building with the counterpart right now. So for a lot of that energy coming into divine union right now, that ability of recognizing the desire to maintain, this is almost the energy again, as we keep talking about. It's not trying to change something for the sake of making it feel different, but trying to change something, trying to ground something in the process and trying to preserve it along the way. This is a lot of that energy navigating the abandonment wounds, potentially even facing experiences from the past that were similar to this, but not the same. But a lot of that has to do with the intentionality of the energy trusting the process, if you will, and trusting one another along the way. While for the energy right now, deep within the divine union frequency, this is so much of that venting. This is some of that's just more of that energetic support that's almost saying like, again, as long as you're not directing something at someone, but almost allowing that space of venting to someone. Like that's almost that moment of saying to one another, like, that's always welcome here because that's the gift that we give one another along the way. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Ace of Wands and its reversal and our Wheel of Fortune, which I love. This combination together is fantastic, especially considering some of the heaviness that we've seen in the cards over the last few days. These are our godsends right here. These are our godsends. Can I please have one card to clarify, please? Action, action, action. Like action. Yeah, taking a lot of steps of action right now. There's a lot of actionability that's happening. So even here, I got to say, like that pressure, right? That external force. So what is the gift that occurs? Listen, what is the gift that occurs when you're feeling a lot of energetic pressure and you're feeling triggered? But instead of taking it out on someone, instead of just taking it out on someone, instead of projecting it out onto someone else, articulating how you're feeling, articulating what that trigger is to a certain extent. This is the energy that in the modality of expressing, immediately a new possibility arises. Immediately a new opportunity. So even now, there's that modality of asking for something and receiving it, but potentially in a different way than one anticipated or expected, right? Because that's the gift that we receive when we're in that modality of allowing, and like, again, this is what's so important about this. When we desire something and we put it forward, we abandon the outcome. We abandon the energetic opportunity. That's that expression point, and that's why it can feel a little bit like vulnerable when we do so. Because there's a lot of energy right now deep within the divine unions. Like, I'm just putting this out there. And as they vent, there's almost someone that's like the energy within the divine union is coming back towards the counterpart and saying, are you open to a suggestion? Are you open to some advice? Are you open to some guidance? So we see even now, it's like that moment. It's like the gift that occurs in the moment that we recognize that the trigger is helpful. Because the trigger is helpful. Because it helps you recognize and identify a problem that, as long as you don't react to it, but instead express and communicate it, immediately leads to an opportunity of a new possibility emerging. While for masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union, a lot of this work is the expression or expansion point of holding on to something and caring about it so much that you have to have that leap of faith. You don't necessarily know what will occur as you make some of those changes, but feeling that sense of recognizing the value and importance of something and wanting to preserve and maintain it at all cost, it's allowing for a little bit more of that feeling of recklessness today. I don't want to say recklessness. Recklessness is not potentially the right word. It's that feeling of allowing the abundance of possibility to guide you, not allowing yourself to feel dictated by your worst fears. Because when we feel that trigger point, it becomes too easy to become reactive. It becomes too easy to move in the direction of the fear. But allowing that intention to guide us, that sometimes feels like that leap of faith, if you will. So we see a lot of the energy that is coming into divine union, feeling like they're taking that leap of faith, doing everything they can to protect something energetically in the process, but almost like saying, I want to take that leap of faith with you. While for masculine and feminine energy that is in separation, a lot of this work in separation right now has to do with that sense of space of taking that leap of faith for yourself. This is why so much of that path work right now feels like it is difficult in separation, because there's too much of that energy of assumption, that desire or that need to assume the worst instead of expecting the best. So for a lot of the energy right now, and this, well, at the same time, not like you being energetically mindful. So it requires, I want to say, a very fine line right now, because that's that moment where it's not just basing it on words that don't match actions, right? This is the energy that feels like they're seeing the tangible evidence of something that is real, that is there. But it's also requiring a little bit of that leap of faith, because there's some gray area here in terms of what could be happening, that some of those anxieties and fears are rising up. But again, not allowing the shadows of the past to confound the perception of the present, but informing upon it is something that is very significant and important at this time. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Wheel of Fortune in combination with our Knight of Cups in its reversal. One card to clarify. Clarification coming through right now with our Seven of Swords in its reversal. Everybody say it with me. Everybody say it. We don't go back to the sword store for puppies or kittens or bunny rabbits. We only go back to the sword store for one thing and one thing only, which is swords. So for a lot of the energy, I need to stress this. This is why for some of the energy right now, in separation, it's not the fact that you're not trying to move forward right now. It's the fact that sometimes the past casts a very long shadow into the future. I'm going to say that again. Remember that it's not just enough to move forward from the past, but remember that the shadows of the past sometimes cast a very long shadow across the future. So we see even now this could be the expression of energy that is moving forward in this modality, and they feel something that feels a little characteristic or similar to something that they experienced in the past. But what is valuable and important in those moments, this is the energy that's walking that fine line of saying, I'm going to allow the past to inform me, but I'm not going to allow the past to fear me, to make me afraid. I'm going to allow the past to inform me, but I'm not going to move forward in fear. I'm going to allow the past to inform me, but I'm not going to move forward in fear. I'm going to be mindful of what occurred to prevent it from happening again. But I'm not going to assume that that is occurring, because that's the way that I generate it. So we see even now that a lot of that energy, having to take that leap of faith while also being energetically mindful, that's a lot of the energy that's proceeding forward with a sense of caution, right? That sense of trepidation. And either that's that moment of a point of the amplification of correction of path work within your own self, or that is that moment that almost feels like you're confronting your past in the moment that you're experiencing something that feels similar to it, and then looking it dead in the face and saying, I am not going to let you define me. I am not going to let you define me. I am not going to let that terrible experience define how I perceive everyone moving forward. I'm not going to let that experience of having the worst happen to me make me assume that the worst is all I will be able to receive going forward. So we see right now, this is why I keep saying it's so valuable and important right now not to be operating in the realm of assumption. When those modalities come through, being able to face them, and to a certain extent, it requires you to have to energetically face your fears, even in a moment of potentially making a new energetic connection. By articulating and saying to myself, like saying to oneself, not only am I not going to allow that fear, like not only am I, like I'm going to be pay attention to that past, but I'm not going to let that past define how I move in the present. While for masculine and feminine energy, and for masculine, this is a lot of the masculine coming into that pathwork of correction. For a lot of the masculine energy, this is also that moment of coming into that space of honest and open expression. Because for a lot of the masculine energy, this is a lot of the masculine energy that's saying, I want to do my best to communicate to the feminine. I want to do my best to communicate to the feminine, but I also want them to recognize that I'm coming from a place of deep authenticity. And a lot of the masculine energy here may be feeling the frustration point because there's almost that anxiety of fearing that the feminine will assume the worst, right? And masculine being like, you are totally validated in doing so. Like a lot of the masculine energy right now, like I feel like there's some of this masculine energy in separation saying, like almost like I wouldn't believe me too. Like I know like this is hard. Like I understand how difficult this is. The timing on something is difficult. Like almost that moment of trying to express and say to someone, like I understand that this is requiring a space of trust with you. I understand that. But what is the energy that is truly in that modality of experiencing a conflict point saying to feminine that's helping them articulate the difference between masculine that's just like effectively like giving wordplay. This is a masculine that's almost saying to the feminine, the difference between that and me is I'm going to show you through action. And even here we see that a lot of the masculine energy is almost even in the moment of articulating what they're experiencing. They're like, I'm showing you even now that this is a connection I am prioritizing. And you can rely upon that, even not when things are perfect, but especially when they're not. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now for the energy coming into divine union right now. This is why we see so much of this expansion point and what feels like there is a change that is occurring here. Because this is a lot of the masculine energy almost saying to feminine, I never felt this way. And masculine almost saying to feminine, no, you don't understand. I've never felt so energetically safe. I've never felt like I could be my own authentic self. And the masculine recognizes that a lot of that journey was a journey of finding their own self. Because how can you be safe with another if you don't allow the ability for them to connect towards you? So we see even now, like a lot of that reflection point, that's a lot of the masculine almost saying to themselves, you know, and this is almost the masculine looking at that gestalt moment and saying, it's not just about me. It's about that beautiful combination of being ready for it and also finding the right person. This is why we see that for so much of the masculine energy, it's like it can feel energetically overwhelming because it's almost that moment of the masculine realizing that that journey of the self was one that they had to do within the self, and then feeling amplified by the perfection of the moment of being able to come towards a feminine that feels like it's helped, like it's building into that space where they can build something together that is beyond them. Because it doesn't require them to be someone that they're not. It allows them to be their perfect modality of who they are. While for feminine energy experiencing that right now and receiving that from the feminine masculine, this is a lot of feminine energy that's closing out a lot of those energetic cycles from the past. Because that's not that modality of the feminine saying, you know, I just got to deal with this. This is not great, but I just got to navigate it. Versus saying like, wow, I don't have to navigate anything here. This is something that we're in alignment with. It's not requiring us to be energetically perfect. But that's the beauty of it. It's perfect because it doesn't require that act of perfection. Continuing to get clarification for the energy deep within the divine union. This is the energetic equivalent, if you will, of the energy within the divine union, almost feeling the frustration of having to navigate. Like, it's like you go through the whole day, everyone sticks a bunch of swords in you, and then you go home and you just got to drop all the swords in front of the other person and being like, I'm sorry, these aren't even your swords. You just got to deal with them. I've got, like, I'm sorry. And so a lot of the energy right now is just kind of going through that modality of navigating and holding space for each other along the way. But again, that's that beauty, because that's the energy that almost looks towards one another and says, I appreciate you because I can vent to you. And I know that there's that space to do so. And I'm not directing it at you. I'm not directing that force towards you. I'm allowing that space to be able to articulate how I'm feeling, and you hold space to do the same, because it's not directed at you. It's something that we're experiencing together. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Knight of Cups and its reversal in combination with our Ten of Pentacles and its reversal. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with our Five of Cups in its reversal. So what's so beautiful about a lot of this energy that we're seeing right now is that optimism. I have to say, I know the energy over the last few days has felt very intense, but I think we're starting to move towards that easement point to a certain extent. And a lot of it has to do in the realms of catharsis, right? It's like that moment of like feeling a breath of fresh air. So for the energy right now that is deep within the divine union frequency, that sigh of relief that you effectively are able to provide one another, that sense of almost feeling like you leave a lot of those problems at the door, if you will, in relationality to what you're experiencing. That's that moment that you recognize that's not coincidental. That's commitment. That's commitment. That's the energetic commitment that occurs for the energy deep within the divine union frequency, which is that sense of being like, again, almost like that energetic oasis for one another, and preserving that and maintaining that and cultivating that and focusing one's attention on how one can do so in a way that feels like it is both supportive to both energies. This is a lot of that energy that like feels that immediate moment of relief and release, because it doesn't require you to operate in a state of being something that you're not. It allows you to be a space or place where you can be your most authentic like version of self and feel comfortable in doing so. And that is a gift that a lot of the energy deep within the divine union is receiving from one another at this time. While for masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union, a lot of that work, if you will, like a lot of that work is one that we're recognizing and identifying is the sense of feeling that you're creating that with the counterpart. And there's that modality where, again, that sense of energetic mindfulness, that sense of intentionality, it's almost like creating that like boundary point in terms of like, if there's, I gotta say it again, if there's modalities where you're trying to share that energetic news to those around you, that you're articulating that positivity point and it's not being received as such, or it's creating that feeling of like energetic discord, there's a lot of energy in that modality that almost says like, again, like the beautiful spell of so what? Like the beautiful spell of so what? It's like that modality of suddenly saying, or having that point of saying, I don't really care. I don't really care how you feel about it, because this is what's important to me. This is what I value. And for the energy to see that, and to see the energy of even hearing the articulation of some of that frustration point, but not being impacted by the outside influence, but almost feeling like it reaffirms where their heart space is. This is a lot of energy that feels like what they're creating together is so precious, because again, it is the commitment that says, I am choosing you and what we are creating together, regardless of anything else that happens externally outside of that. Well, for the energy right now in separation, you can see why this is so problematic right now. Because this is a moment that I even see now, there's a lot of new energetic connections forming, and then there's a lot of external stuff that's happening, and it could feel like it couldn't come at a worse moment. Couldn't come at a worse moment. So we see even now, like a lot of that energy, how is the energy defining what feels like an energetic excuse as opposed to someone who's experiencing a moment of difficulty at a time that they feel is least ideal for them to be experiencing it? Through the actions that identify and articulate the different of words. For the energy that like immediately comes forward and says, this is what we're doing. This is what the new direction is. Because that's the energy that says, I can feel the difference between someone putting something energetically off and someone saying, this is the direction that the ship is going into. This is the movement of that directionality. This is the way we're going. And so even here we see that a lot of that energy and separation, feeling that excitement point or that amplification, if you will, because there's that moment or modality of, again, recognizing the difference between something that feels like it's being put off inevitably versus that moment of someone saying, I recognize and identify that the timing right now isn't ideal, but I'm moving forward in such a way that I'm showing and expressing to you that this is what that pathwork is. And that communication is so vital and important along the way. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Four of Pentacles in combination with our Fool card. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our Hangman in its reversal. A lot of action, I gotta say. This is what's interesting about this. This is easement and action. It's easement and action. So even here, and I need to stress this, this is why a lot of the energy is going, this is not something from the past, especially if there's that anxiety or that moment where it feels like some of the shadow of the past is looming over you and being like, oh no, is that happening again? This is the energy that's almost looking towards one another in separation and saying, no, it's not. It's not. I can tell the difference. I can tell the difference because this is the energy that can feel, and I'll put it this way. This is the difference between energy that feels the laissez-fairness of someone like casually saying something, always like having some kind of like, reasons or things like that, like always that like that easy solution versus the energy that's like, it feels like they're having to make changes and they have to like, if they feel like the frustration and the like that kind of energy. This is what I mean about the emotional, being able to articulate the emotional expression, not coming, like allowing that trigger point, because this is a lot of energy that's feeling anxiety, because almost like I see masculine being like, please don't go anywhere. I just need to do this thing. And feminine being like, I see the fact that that's coming from a place of like a value, like it's coming from a place of someone being like, I don't want to, I have to, like that difference point. You know what I mean? Like the frustration of someone that feels like they're being like, that there's not enough of them. And they're doing their best to try to build into a priority space. Like the feminine can recognize the difference. And a lot of it is the difference between feeling and expressing and seeing the emotionality, if you will, from a masculine that's opening up to them in an authentic way, particularly around their own frustrations, particularly around their own fears. So even here we see that if there is that energetic delay, it's not an energetic delay because it feels like in a way it's fixing, it's recalibrating. It's a recalibration of timing. It's a recalibration of timing and saying better not to rush something and do it when we can leave ourselves full expansion of enjoying it, as opposed to doing something half-mast, if you will, right? So this is a lot of energy that can tell the difference between someone that is putting something off because they don't desire to do it versus someone saying, I don't want to do it because the timing's off and I don't want to do it half-mast, right? While for masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union right now, a lot of this energy coming into divine union, this is the energy that's kind of doing the opposite. This is the energy that's saying the opposite here. That's like, there's no good time to make a change. The time to make a change is the moment that you decide to do so. So that's why we see that this is feeling more like a moment of like activation, because this is the energy that's already, that actually said, I feel like they're saying to themselves, it's already happened. Like they've already moved in this way. Like this is the momentum that's effectively energetically picking up here, because this is that moment that they're seeing that some of that reactivity point is like out of their hands. Like it's that aspect of being like, the rest of it's out of my hands. So we see even now, like, this is the energy that, again, the beauty of it is almost looking towards those things, not with a sense of anxiety, but almost that sense of excitement. Because when you can have that moment of looking at something and say anything could happen, it also means anything is possible. So we see even now, like, a lot of that energy is, again, preparing. Like, it's not that they're not preparing for the worst, but they're expecting the best. They're allowing that excitement to amplify them. They're allowing that feeling of the positivity of the energetic connection to empower them forward. Because that's a lot of the energy coming into divine union, saying we're not moving forward out of fear, we're moving forward out of love. While for masculine and feminine energy, that is deep within the divine union frequency, this is the energy that almost looks towards the counterpart, and the easement point has to do with feeling like that sense that anything is possible because you can be your most authentic version of self, right? That sense of energetic exploration, if you will. Like we see even now, like the energy deep within the divine union, a lot of this, it feels like to a certain extent there is that modality that may be coming into play here in relationality to, I want to say, the expectations that others hold towards you versus the encouragement that you give towards one another, right? Because we see even here, like that ability of expressing and articulating what your frustrations are, but not someone taking it energetically personally because you're not directing it personally towards them. This is that modality that feels like that flourishing point, because that the minute you have that easement, it's like you free your mind of it. It feels like, I told you, it's like a venting process. It's like you just get to wipe the slate clean, if you will, because you've had a place to vent it. So now you're not holding on to it. And that like opens up all of the possibilities in terms of new ideas that can spring, because you're not holding on to all of that frustration and ickiness like within your own headspace. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Fool card in its upright and our Seven of Swords in its reversal. One card to clarify. That's the card. The cards are acting very funny today. Ace of Pentacles in its upright. Beautiful, because gosh, we saw the Ace of Pentacles, man, in their reversal the last few days. Everybody just, like, there's a lot of that. I told you, it's that pressure. It's the pressure of the double Capricorn. It's the expectations, putting force on the aspiration. So we see even now that ability of just clearing your headspace, if you will, being like, whew, like a little bit of that clearing out process. A lot for the energy within the divine union frequency. It feels reinvigorating. It feels reaffirming. It feels like that modality where suddenly you have more energy to give towards something. But it's because you've had a place where you can vent all of your frustration. It's like cleaning out the closet, if you will. Be like, don't you feel better now that you got rid of all that stuff? And the energy being like, yes, I do. Because a lot of that energy, just in the articulation of expressing something, it allows for that clearing of the headspace, wherein new possibilities and opportunities. How can you come up with new ideas when your head's filled with all those doubts and anxieties and getting hard on yourself? There's no room in there. Like a lot of it is almost like saying to one another, like, yeah, like let it better out. I told you over the last few days, better out than in. Find a place to express it. Find a place to like vent it out, because once it's out, it's like that beautiful Zen moment where you're like, oh, look, here's there's an idea. There it is. Pa-pa, But better, it has to come out first in a positive way. Well, for masculine, and this could be happening on the tangible vector as well. So if you're doing this in the tangible, it's either happening metaphysically or it's happening tangibly. While for masculine and feminine energy, that is, and it's for appearances, like it's because the Leo season is coming into masculine and feminine energy that are coming into divine union. This is that moment this is like the pedal to the metal, if you will. This is like that energy that says this is a double down. This is like a did I stutter kind of thing. Because if this is energy that and I'll tell you even now, this is why the feminine, I'm going to tell you right now, this is why the feminine got trepidatious if masculine came forward with this emotional offer. Why did the feminine get trepidatious? Because feminine energy, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. Feminine energy has experiences with masculine, that when masculine moves forward from a place of their own personal commitment, and then suddenly all the noise around them feels like it doesn't like the like starts making bad noises in the sound of the direction they make. This is feminine being like, I've seen masculine move from a place of fear. I've seen masculine move from their abandonment wound instead of their intentionality. So for feminine energy to see the masculine dealing potentially even with some of the disharmony that's occurring in a moment that they're moving deeper into energetic commitment, but staying steadfast, looking towards the energy around them and saying, did I stutter? That's the feminine saying, again, this is a real one. This is a real offer. This is a real person. This is a real energetic frequency, because this is someone who knows what they want. And this is someone who has the strength to go forward in the face of recognizing that when we go forward towards what we want, we often have to hit the barrier of what everyone else wants in the process. So this is the feminine saying, I value this masculine because of their consistency, because of their perseverance. And that's not necessarily just in relationality to what they experience on the day-to-day, but the prioritization that they give and the commitment to the feminine as they proceed forward with that same degree and level of prioritization and importance and significance. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, this is why this can feel so much more triggering. For energy right now that is in separation, because you don't have the time vector that's been added to circumstances or situations, right? This is a lot of the energy that feels like they're going through this is like a gauntlet energy. This is like a gauntlet energy for energy in separation right now. And I can see it. And I can see a lot of the masculine energy very frustrated and overwhelmed, because I see that a lot of masculine energy feels like their priority is pulling them in different directions right now at the moment of building what may feel like a very strong energetic connection with the feminine. But what is happening right now for a lot of the energy, this is that moment that as long as there's that clear communication, as long as there's that expression of authenticity, like the feminine energy moving towards masculine from a place of authenticity, they can tell the difference between someone that needs to put something off and they really desire to be doing something else in the process, versus an energy that's like more wishy-washy, more take it or leave it kind of thing. So for a lot of the feminine energy, seeing that, this is almost the feminine saying to and articulating to masculine, like, I understand. And your ability to and why? Because this is feminine goes, they immediately recalibrated. They immediately provided something different. This is the energy that says, I'm not just trusting the words of the masculine here, because I'm seeing the action even in a moment that feels like it is energetically hurdled. This is almost like masculine. I see a lot of masculine going the extra mile right now in new energetic connections that is reaffirming to the feminine and saying, yes, I can recognize the difference between someone that is articulating something because they don't want to be bother with it, versus someone who's saying, no, I don't want you to think that that's what's happening. This is what I'm doing to show you that this is legitimate and this is what is real. Continuing to get clarification between our 7 of Wands in its reversal in combination with our 5 of Cups in its reversal. A lot of easement today. I'm very happy to see this. These 2 cards together are also very good. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with the King of Swords in its reversal. Again, I'm not surprised to see this right now. This is the same card we pulled yesterday. We're getting a lot of similarities here, which is good, but we're also seeing a lot of that transition that's happening here as well. So this is a positive, because this is the masculine energy. There's a lot of masculine energy right now that may be expressing some frustration towards feminine. And this is the feminine this is the feminine energy potentially in separation, recognizing. And even here, there's a little bit of that parsing through that is happening here between a masculine energy that shows a lack of desire or a lack of motivation in terms of doing something energetically hard, versus a masculine energy that is doing very hard things all the time and feels frustrated that they can't be more strong. That it's like that sense here. I'm even seeing this is a feminine energy going, no, this is different. Because that's the difference between a masculine, like I want to say, I feel like a lot of energy of feminine right now is experiencing the difference between having some past experiences of masculine that always seemed like they had an excuse, versus masculine energy that says, this is inexcusable. Like, this is almost feminine energy seeing masculine energy approach and being like, I know this is inexcusable. And feminine being like, actually, actually, no, because you're recognizing and you're articulating how you feel. And I recognize the difference between the energy of a masculine that's always looking for an excuse versus a masculine that holds themselves to such a high standard that the masculine themselves is saying, this is inexcusable. I am so sorry. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's the feminine energy seeing that and being like, you have nothing to apologize for. Because that's the feminine energy that sees internally in the masculine how much something means in the modality of how much they're concerned about damaging something that is beginning. While for masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union, a lot of that work that we're seeing here in relationality to building into those spaces and places, doing that hard work, if you will, this is the energy of the feminine that again is building now into that sense of excitement, building into that sense, like if this was feminine energy that saw the masculine coming towards them and bringing forth that commitment energy, and this is why the feminine was more reserved. This is the feminine navigating that fear. This is the feminine saying, and recognizing and almost saying to the like either to themselves or to the masculine, you know, I've seen energy kind of articulate that they desired things, but then feeling that conflict point in bringing something forth around them. That was always that moment that they stepped back, because it was almost that moment of the masculine in the past. This is how the feminine's healing in those modalities. Is like the masculine that was too worried to rock their own boat, that they weren't going anywhere, right? It's like the dinghy that just kind of like wades around in the sea. So we see even now like a lot of the feminine energy feeling that sense of masculine, experiencing some of that strong wind, if you will, but proceeding in that direction regardless. That's a lot of the feminine energy that immediately starts to heal from those experiences from the past, because even if the shadow of the past was looming, this is the feminine looking and saying, this is not that. This is not that. And for masculine, this is almost the masculine potentially recognizing and identifying spaces in the places in the past where that may have occurred. But that's almost the masculine saying, I was not ready. I was not energetically ready. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, deep within the divine union frequency, a lot of this work just feels like that easement point in terms of letting one's own armor down, if you will. Like the ability to be one's most authentic sense of self with one another. It feels like that easement. It feels like that process of healing, because we effectively see in these modalities right now, that's that sense or that space of almost being able to say to one another, this is the space I can be in, and I can be my authentic version of self. And even in that modality, that expression point of seeing and recognizing that, it allows for that vulnerability of the doubts and the fears of the masculine to come forth. But in a way, it feels like an unburdening, because in the moment of unburdening oneself of the doubts and fears, you immediately feel that uplift in relationality to being like, I'm glad I got that off my chest. And for feminine, being able to experience and receive that from masculine, it's like feminine like taking the sword from masculine and being like, let me wash this off for you, kind of thing. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now, between the Hangman in its reversal and the Ace of Pentacles in its upright. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our Moon card in its upright. So what we're effectively seeing right now For both masculine and feminine, deep within the divine union frequency, a lot of this is the fact that like you're doing shadow work through one another. You're simply doing shadow work through one another. And that's that moment that always feels a little, I want to say, it always feels a little incongruous, because a lot of that energy feels like, I feel like you're my safe space. Why? I don't want to give you all of this, like, ugly stuff that comes forward in those moments. But this is almost the energy that looks towards one another and says, I'm here to receive it. Like that's the energy that almost says to one another, those parts of the self that are so hard for you to carry, they feel very light to me. Those parts of the self that you feel are like, look at this. This is the energy that looks towards one another. And like when they have those moments and they're like, I'm sorry to give you this. This is like the worst part of me. This is the energy that looks to the other and says, this isn't bad at all. This isn't bad at all. Like what you think is the darkest part of you is the beauty, is like this is the energy that almost looks towards one another and says, I don't see any aspect of you that I don't welcome and embrace, because that's the energy that looks towards one another and says everything, like every part of you bears quality. And this is the energy that almost looks to one another and says, I've yet to see something that I don't like. I've yet to see something that I can't navigate. I've yet to see something that I don't recognize or see or value. So we see even now, like when we have that modality, what happens? This is what we talk about with shadow work. And when we're able to amplify shadow work with another, that ability of bringing forth that aspect or part of the self, once we've done that work, stressing, once we've done that work, so we don't direct it at another, but we present it forth, right? So we don't project it out at another, but articulate what we feel within. That's that moment that allows for that amplification of healing to come through, because it allows for a space to be able to see and recognize and hold space for one another as you do so. So we see even now that ability of like, articulating and navigating the hard part together, but feeling that embrace at the same time of someone saying, I'm here with you. I'm holding your hand every step of the way. That's that moment that feels like, that's like that, that shadow work that becomes like a nice walk through the nighttime, right? Like that's the moment of being like, let's go, let's do a little bit of that work together. While for masculine and feminine energy, that is coming into divine union, this is why we see that even in that moment of coming forward with with commitment, we see so much of that doubt and fear emerging, because this is a lot of the feminine energy feeling the anxiety point of masculine offering something, but being afraid that the masculine isn't fully ready for all aspects of a situation or circumstance, right? Like that, even there is that moment of the feminine that always feels that anxiety point between and again, this is why even now for a lot of the feminine, this is almost the feminine energy looking towards masculine and saying, this is real. I know this is real. Because this isn't just the masculine energy that's coming towards the feminine and embracing all the positives. This is the masculine energy that they're seeing is able to carry the weight of the difficulties or the hurdles that always occur in the modality of doing something that is new or creating something that is different, right? It's not an easy path work. It's not something for the easement, because you have to be ready to navigate that rough terrain. So this is almost the feminine energy that feels like the true amplification of the commitment that's happening between them in an energy of partnership, because this is the masculine energy almost showing them the process. I'm here for you all the way. I'm walking with you together. This is something that we're doing together and we're sharing on this journey. And so for the feminine energy receiving that, not only is it uplifting, but it builds a lot of clarity to past experiences where they may have felt those abandonment wounds coming up in terms of masculine, like abandoning or moving away from them when things got too difficult, or when things got too hard, or when things felt like they were too much of an energetic burden. So we see even now a lot of that energy moving into the beauty of feeling like that embrace in terms of the aspect of energy that's ready to navigate all like aspects of saying, I'm willing to take all of it. While for masculine and feminine energy, that is in separation. This is why so much of this work right now may feel like it's so arduous and difficult, because we see even now that, especially for some of the masculine energy right now, there's that anxiety of revealing too much to feminine, feeling like if I reveal too much, I'm going to send this feminine energy away. But what's happening right now? There's a lot of there's a lot of energy that's building very intense connections at a moment that feels like it's inopportune. Because this is almost the feminine energy looking towards masculine, being like, I don't mean to let you know about all my problems, and feminine being like, what problems? Like that's that moment that says, I'm here for it. This is the energy of the feminine saying, this doesn't feel difficult to me. It feels like we're still building a connection. We're just building a little bit of time in the process. While for continuing to get clarification on these cards right now, between our Ace of Pentacles in combination with our King of Swords in its reversal. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with, oh, I'm so glad to see this card and it's upright. We've got a lot of the same cards as yesterday. So we've got here our King of Cups. So I'm going to say it again. I just see a lot of modalities right now of masculine in separation that feel like they need to come to the aid and support of some other masculine energy around them in some way, shape, or form that feels like they need it right now. And I keep seeing that a lot of this work of masculine right now in separation, it may feel, it may feel a little bit difficult, because there's almost a lot of this energy of masculine in separation that is navigating situations or circumstances. I don't know why this is coming up. It almost feels a little bit like it's a need to know basis. It almost feels like I need to stress here. It almost feels like some masculine energy and separation, like navigating those circumstances in such a way that it's like they don't want to break. I want to say it's like they're trying to help or support other masculine energy while not breaking the confidence of masculine energy that's in need of that level and degree of support to a certain extent. And it's hard, because I see even now, like a lot of that communication that may be occurring right now, or this is happening within the self. Like I'm going to say right now, this is either happening, I need to stress this, okay? This is either happening for masculine energy externally, or it's happening internally. It's either the masculine energy going into a point of vulnerability, being more vulnerable than they typically would be, and immediately feeling that sense of energetic balance in the process. Because it's almost like, again, the situation being one that it doesn't allow you to move as ideally as you want, but you're being very authentic about it along the way. It immediately creates that sense or space of balance within. Or this is literally masculine energy that's navigating situations and circumstances wherein they feel like they have to come to the aid of another masculine energy. Bearing in mind, this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. But it feels difficult because it feels like it's not the masculine's journey to articulate upon. So either one of those modalities I see potentially are being navigated right now for masculine. Or this is masculine energy that is needing that type of energetic support from another masculine energy. So, and all of these could also be happening at once right now, which is why I'm articulating there's a lot going on right now. But for feminine energy, the ability of masculine, even in separation, to articulate and amplify like what is occurring on that journey, whether it's happening within the self or whether it's happening with like outside of the self, in a way, that is the feminine feeling, like that sense of masculine putting so much of that consideration to bear. That's almost the feminine energy says, I recognize that you're still prioritizing keeping me up to date, keeping me up to speed. Like I'm the like the prioritization of the new energetic connection is one that you're focusing on letting me know at every step of the way. This is the energy, even if they're not necessarily immediately coming into connection, going, no, there's something important here. Because even through something difficult, masculine is not leaving me out in the cold. They're not leaving me outside of it. They're not shutting the door. They're allowing that ability of building forth into something and allowing me to be a part of it in the way that we're able to communicate through it. While for masculine, and so for we see even now, like there's a lot, I want to say there's a lot of new deep energetic connections that are potentially forming in separation via that type of energetic connection. Saying like, again, what do I need? How can I help? What can I do? But again, within those boundaries and limitations of not overly giving, but letting that path work serve to help recognize what feels like it is authentic. Because in that modality, giving help in that way, I need to stress this. If someone is in a moment or modality of needing help and support and you offer it, it's often taken. So a lot of the feminine energy is recognizing that valuation point of, again, being able to say, can I help in this way? And the masculine saying, yes, absolutely. That is building that sense of energetic like strength, even in those modalities right now, because that's helping the feminine recognize, again, the authenticity of the masculine that is showing the tangible reality of what is potentially occurring, as opposed to just hearsay. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, that is coming into divine union, one of the, like what we're effectively seeing, this is the feminine energy. If this is masculine energy that didn't just articulate the fact that they want to move towards commitment, but they're taking tangible steps. They're taking tangible steps to do so. They're seeing the changes that are occurring, even navigating the terrain of those who might not necessarily be as like aligned to the pathwork that they're heading toward in this direction. This is the feminine being like, oh, this is real. This is real. This is truly happening, because this is the feminine that goes, this is not a masculine that gets overly influenced by the outside noise as it relates to their own energetic connection. This is a masculine energy that recognizes that their prioritization point is not one that feels like it's just good for everybody and that's why they're doing it. This is the masculine energy that says, this is good for me. This is what I preserve. This is what's valuable to me. And if someone else has a problem with it, that's their business. While for masculine, that same modality is coming into play in terms of looking towards things and saying, if there's energy that you're moving towards in this vibration and someone has an energetic problem with it, or they're bringing up an insecurity, that's a masculine almost being like, I can't help you with that. This is what I desire. And that's almost the masculine saying, like, if there's like that's masculine being like, I'm good. Like, that's where my energy is moving. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, that is deep within the divine union frequency, this modality, this ability, this is why the masculine feels the beauty and the sanctity of the divine union. Because it doesn't require the masculine, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but how it feels most aligned to. It doesn't require the masculine to be anything more than they are. It allows them to feel like they're perfect exactly how they are. And in that modality of feeling like they don't have to be anything more than they are, it almost creates that sense of the masculine wanting to be their most perfect self, because it leaves the amplification in the room for the masculine to feel the full expanse of what they're energetically feeling and being supported every step of the way. While for feminine, that same modality of seeing a masculine that even when the masculine comes towards them and says, I'm not at my best today, and the feminine almost saying, you're at your best every day. I've yet to see a moment where you're not at your best. Like, that's almost the moment of the feminine that, again, feels that stability of the consistency of what the masculine delivers. Because even when they feel like they're not operating at their best, it's perfect. So, final card for today between our Moon card in combination with our King of Cups. May I please have one card to clarify? Are you the card? Yes. Clarification coming through right now with our Nine of Pentacles in its upright. Love to see this card today. So I know the last few days have felt a little, like, I'll be honest, the last couple of readings, we've seen a lot of that roughness coming through. Today we're seeing some of this movement into easement. There's a little bit of that easement point. But I have to stress this. A lot of this energy that we're effectively seeing at this time, it feels a lot like, it just feels a lot like balance. Like, that's the best way I can express this right now. It feels a lot like a bunch of energetic balance for masculine and feminine energy deep within the divine union frequency. I want to say there's a lot of this energy of, again, it's like going through that difficulty together, having that point of expression, having that point of venting what you've been energetically carrying immediately provides that beautiful point of catharsis, right? It's like it clears the air, if you will. So again, as long as these energies aren't directing that at one another, but talking towards one another about it, like that's almost that, like, it's like that beautiful clearing of the air, because that's like that sense of, like, you know, if you go through the night, you're going to always reach the dawn, right? So we see even now, like, a lot of that ability to just have that expression point between one another. It's a gift and the grace that you receive in the process that feels like it's so reaffirming and empowering. It almost creates that sense of, like, you know, continuing forward. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, coming into divine union, now, this is now the feminine energy that feels that sigh of relief, if you will. Because if this isn't a masculine that not only didn't just say that they aspired and desired to do something, but has put the tangible action into play, almost saying to the feminine, like, it's already done, or I've already told them. And like, even here, if that's that moment or modality of navigating any of the circumstances of something moving deeper into energetic union, but there's that sense of expressing it, that sense of sharing it together. This is the energy of the feminine, almost feels that point of relief and goes, this is a masculine in their authenticity, because this isn't a masculine that just says that they desire things, but they don't have the fortitude to, like, navigate what they actually require. This is the feminine going, this is this masculine that can do both. This is a masculine whose words match their actions. This is a masculine that recognizes that when we move with intentionality, it's not always easy, but we don't let it deviate us from our course. While for the energy right now in separation, this is why this feels like a little bit of recalibration in relationality to time. Because if this is energy that, again, they're going through something that feels like it's inconveniencing or creating a problem, there's that uncertainty there in relationality to what could be happening, that anxiety of the shadow of the past casting a long shadow forward. But what are these energies doing along the way? They're doing everything they can to reaffirm the commitment to one another, that what they are effectively articulating is the honest, open expression. And that's not something that just requires words. This is energy that's putting immediate, tangible action into those words to show the other that is actually true, that is actually valid, that is something that is like they're on the same page, if you will. And it's feeling a little bit more difficult for the energy in separation because it's requiring a little bit more of that trust, that leap of faith, if you will. Bottom of the deck on this reading right now, we've got here the star energy. I have to say, this is that articulation point on the fact that these energies are navigating the same circumstances, but they're impacting them in different ways. Specifically, because what we're effectively seeing right now, it's vulnerable. It's a lot of vulnerability that's coming to bear right now with a combination of, I want to say, a lot of, I told you as I started this reading, that emotionality of the Cancer season, the vulnerability coming at odds with the egoic self, right? So this is like the crab and the lion battling it out. So we got the vulnerability of the crab, like fighting with the lion to a certain extent. And so we see even now, it requires that sense of vulnerability. But how do we build into a sense of being both emotional, but also being able to hold on to our own point of energetic self, that egoic self, that sense of pride. This is the energy that's coming into a space of owning their own authenticity, of being able to look at the self and say, I'm not going to shy away from what I'm feeling. I'm going to embrace it. I'm going to own it. I'm not going to apologize for it. So for a lot of the energy right now, the ability to overcome some of that feeling of anxiety or fear is allowing oneself to feel the authenticity of what you're feeling, and then speaking it with a point of confidence, speaking it with a point of security, speaking it with a point of like self-understanding. That doesn't require you to let go of the ego. That allows the ego and the emotional self to embrace. Because when we come into a state or space of being authentic, but being proud in our authenticity, well, that's where the strength lies. So I keep saying to you guys, it's not about shedding the ego. It's not about throwing the ego away. It's about marrying the ego to the emotional self. And a lot of that journey right now is what we're experiencing. For feminine, it feels more difficult in the aspect of requiring you to feel like you're kind of like, it's that vulnerable. It feels very vulnerable, right? It feels like the feminine that kind of recognizes that taking that leap of faith, it does leave them a bit vulnerable to the worst possible circumstances. But this is a lot of the feminine that's allowing their heart to guide them and almost looking towards masculine and saying, I hope you recognize that I'm trusting you, right? And for the masculine energy being in that modality, seeing a feminine in that modality, potentially even recognizing and saying, wow, they're putting a lot of faith in me. This is the masculine that says, I don't want to let them energetically down. I need to do the same work of the self. If they're going so hard, if they're going so far to be so open and emotional in this way, I can do so as well. But it's a little bit more difficult for the masculine because, again, a lot of this is building into that sense of looking towards feminine, saying, I want you to recognize how precious and important this is to me. But I also recognize I don't want that to come at the cost of me being less than authentic in order for us to move forward in that capacity. That is our daily collective read for today. I want to thank you guys so much for being here to receive it. Just a reminder, if you would like to book a private reading with me, you can book one on my website, graystrega.com. My private readings are done over video, and if you are a subscriber to my TikTok, you can take 10% off any of my services when you pay. Just mention your subscriber name at the point of payment. Please keep in mind, if you book a private reading with me, it is a two-step process. You have to book the reading, you have to pay for the reading. Please make sure you do both if you'd like to have that reading. Most importantly, please remember that I will never, ever, 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 ever reach out to you for a private reading. I will never DM you. I will never PM you. I will never slide into your inbox and tell you that I have a very important message that only I can deliver. The only way you can book a reading with me is if you book one on my website or on my Linktree, so I encourage you to do it there. Also, a couple of updates before we move into personal readings for today. First and foremost, thank you to everyone who attended our Empress class last night. I had such a wonderful time walking you guys through the journey of that card. We are going to be continuing our tarot studies on Wednesday, August 14th at 6 p.m. PST, 9 p.m. Eastern, with the next card in the tarot focused on the Emperor. If you missed last night's class, never fear. I'm going to be posting the video of the class as well as the course materials up on my Substack for paid subscribers later this afternoon. So if you'd like to catch up on those classes or any of the previous classes, just go ahead and become a paid subscriber to my Substack, graystrega.substack.com. Your paid subscription to my Substack will grant you access not only to the course materials and recordings for all of the previous classes, but you'll also have access to each month's live class. You'll also have access to a one-on-one chat with me and the other students to ask any questions that you may have in relation to anything that we're studying. And if you become a founding member to my Substack, not only will you receive a discount on the full year's worth of classes, but you'll also receive a one-on-one mentorship reading with me, wherein we will assess where you are on your own personal journey, and I'll give you the best insights in terms of how to focus your studies moving forward to the best of your potential in terms of how you're hoping to utilize the tarot in your own path work. One of the things I tried to do in these classes was really create them so that they be useful to both the absolute novice tarot reader as well as the seasoned reader. There's certainly something there for everyone. So thank you if you're already taking those classes with me, and I look forward to potentially seeing you at our next class. Also, even if you don't become a paid subscriber to my Substack, I would encourage you to follow me there to stay up to date on any new events, opportunities, offerings, or giveaways that I'm hosting. I also post my weekly live schedule on my newsletter, which you will receive every week. Speaking of giveaways, we are now beginning our giveaway for July. I've announced the winner to our June giveaway over on my Substack newsletter. Congratulations to our winner. If you would like to enter our July giveaway, all you need to do is head over to the link tree in my bio. There is a 2-minute travel survey there. Filling out that survey will grant you an entry into the giveaway for a free tarot reading. But if you want to increase your chances of winning, go ahead and forward that reading to a friend, that survey link to a friend. Because when I pull the winner, I will be giving away not only one free tarot reading, I'll be giving away 2. One to the person who wins and one to the person who referred them. So thank you if you've already entered, and I wish you the best of luck in winning this month. Finally, I have a few new offerings that I'm happy to offer my clientele. On top of my standard life path readings, I'm now offering mentorship classes. These can be purchased on an individual level or as a monthly class series. So that's a series of 4 45-minute classes, 1 per week over the course of a month. These can be focused on any area or subject that you are interested or invested in learning about. I take a very limited number of students for that reason. Also, for my clients that are seeking more consistent weekly tarot support, I'm very happy to offer weekly tarot insight packages. This is a package of 4 30-minute readings, 1 per week, so that you can stay more consistent on updates to your own path and journey work. I want to thank you guys for being here today and sharing in these messages, and we will do this again